Welcome to X Confessions Unlocked, where X secrets spill, revenge gets served, and sometimes X's come crawling back. Subscribe now for real, unfiltered stories about love gone wrong, and sometimes very right. Drop a comment with your X drama. Yours could be next. My ex-girlfriend told her friends I was the most repulsive man she'd ever let touch her, but my bank account made it almost worth enduring. So I emptied our joint account, canceled our vacation, and left her with nothing but screenshots of everything she'd said. Now her parents keep calling, begging me to take her back because she has nowhere to go. My name is Ethan Cross, and for most of my life, I was the kind of man people looked right through. Not because I was unremarkable, but because I let them think I was. I grew up in a rusted-out town where dreams went to die. My father was a mechanic. My mother worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. I learned early that the world doesn't give a damn about quiet, polite boys with calloused hands and empty wallets. So I changed. Not my face, not my name, just my mindset. I buried myself in books, in code, in the kind of relentless work that turns boys into men and men into ghosts. By 28, I had a fortune that would have made my childhood self weep. A penthouse, a portfolio, a life built on discipline and silence. And then I met Sophia Vale. Sophia wasn't just beautiful, she was magnetic. The kind of woman who made men forget their own names when she walked into a room. Long dark hair, sharp green eyes, a laugh that could cut glass. We met at a charity gala, one of those events where rich people pretend to care about the poor. She accidentally spilled champagne on my suit, then offered to pay for dry cleaning. I knew the game. I'd seen it before. But when she looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in my life, I let myself believe the lie. She wants me. Not my money. Not my connections. Me. For a year, it was perfect. Or at least, I convinced myself it was. She moved in after 3 months. Quit her job as a stressed-out marketing exec 6 months later. I didn't question it. I liked taking care of her. Like coming home to her curled up on the couch. Like the way she'd kiss me like I was something precious. Then the cracks started showing. The way she'd flinch when I touched her waist. The way her phone always face down. The way she'd disappear for hours, coming back with vague excuses and expensive shopping bags. You're so lucky I'm patient with you. Most women wouldn't put up with your quirks. I told myself it was stress, that all relationships had rough patches. Then, on a Tuesday night, I came home early from a business trip, and I heard her laughing. Our bedroom door was slightly open. Sophia's voice, bright and cruel, spilled into the hallway. God, dating him is like being a zookeeper for some sad, needy animal. A chorus of giggles. Her friends. The sex? Ugh. Imagine a golden retriever trying to fuck. Clumsy. Desperate. Repulsive. My fingers curled into fists. But hey, she continued, voice dripping with amusement. His bank account makes it almost worth enduring. Almost. Someone snorted. You're a saint. Please. He's the most pathetic man I've ever let touch me. But what can I say? The lifestyle is worth it. I stood there, blood roaring in my ears. This wasn't a joke. This was hatred. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. I walked away. And I started planning. Because Sophia had made one fatal mistake. She thought I was weak. The next morning, I kissed her goodbye like nothing was wrong. Then I went to work. Our joint account? Drained. Her credit cards? Frozen. The luxury Maldives trip she'd been bragging about? Canceled. The lease on our penthouse? Terminated. My name was the only one on it. I packed her things, every designer dress, every pair of shoes she'd bought with my money, and left them neatly stacked by the door. Then I waited. She came home at midnight, heels in hand, still giggling from whatever bar she'd been at. Then she saw the boxes. Ethan, what the hell? I didn't yell. Didn't even raise my voice. I just handed her my phone. On the screen, a recording of her voice, crystal clear, calling me repulsive. Her face went white. This isn't what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like, I said calmly. You have until morning to leave. Then I walked out. That was a week ago. Since then, her friends have blown up my phone, calling me cruel, heartless, unreasonable. Her parents keep begging me to talk things out, because she has nowhere to go. Sophia herself has been alternating between rage-filled voicemails and desperate pleas. But the best part? She's broke. No job. No savings. No rich boyfriend to fund her lifestyle. And me? I'm just getting started. The silence after Sophia's threat stretched for days. Not the quiet of surrender. The thick, humming silence before a storm. I knew her too well to believe she'd slink away. Pride like hers doesn't bend. It breaks, violently, and takes everything down with it. I waited. The first strike came at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. My phone lit up with notifications, not calls, not texts, but social media tags. Dozens of them. A carefully curated smear campaign. Anonymous accounts with pixelated profile pictures posted long, trembling threads about me. Ethan Cross is emotionally abusive. Ethan Cross isolates women. Ethan Cross uses money to control people. Her friends amplified the post within minutes. Their comments a chorus of performative outrage. We always knew something was off about him. Poor Sophia. How could we have missed the signs? I read every word with detached amusement. Because Sophia had forgotten one critical detail, I didn't care. Not about the opinions of strangers, not about the whispers in my industry. I'd built my life on cold logic, not the approval of people who turn on a dime for drama. But more importantly, she'd forgotten that I documented everything. While she was busy crafting her victim narrative, I was compiling mine. The recording of her voice, calling me repulsive, was just the beginning. There were security logs of her accessing my private files when she thought I was asleep. Screenshots of her bragging to friends about manipulating me. Even the original lease agreement for the penthouse, which she'd signed as a guest occupant, a legal term that meant she had no actual claim to the property. But the most damning evidence wasn't about what she'd done to me. It was about what she'd done to others. Before me, there had been another man, a software engineer named David, whose name I only discovered buried in her old emails. Their relationship followed the same pattern: love bombing, isolation, financial dependence. The only difference? David hadn't been wealthy enough to sustain her. She'd left him 6 months in, after draining his savings, and ghosted him so thoroughly he'd spent weeks calling her parents looking for answers. I found him, and when I sent him the recordings of Sophia's voice, the same ones she'd thought were so cleverly erased, his response was a single line: "Tell me how to help." We didn't need to conspire. We just needed to exist. On the same day Sophia's posts about me peaked, David published his own story. Not anonymously, under his real name, with dates, receipts, and a timeline that matched mine eerily. Then, in a move neither of us had planned, a third man came forward. Then a fourth, all with the same story, all with proof. The internet, fickle as ever, turned on her within hours. Her friends deleted their posts. Her family stopped answering her calls. The same people who'd been calling me a monster yesterday were now flooding her DMs with "How could you?" and "We trusted you." Sophia didn't crumble. She erupted. She showed up at my penthouse unannounced, not with tears this time, but with fury. She didn't knock. She pounded on the door like she could will it open through sheer force of hatred. When I finally answered, she looked at me with a kind of wild, animal desperation. "You think this is over?" Her voice was raw, stripped of its usual calculated sweetness. "You don't get to ruin me," and walk away. I didn't respond. Just stepped aside and let her see the two men sitting in my living room, David and the third man she'd used, whose name I'd learned was Mark. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. The color drained from her face. For the first time since I'd met her, Sophia looked afraid. She left without another word. But I knew this wasn't the end. Because people like Sophia don't stop. They reinvent. They lie louder. They dig their claws into anyone still foolish enough to trust them. And as I watched her disappear into the elevator, I realized something terrifying. The worst was yet to come. The quiet after Sophia left my penthouse didn't last. I knew it wouldn't. People like her don't fade away. They rebrand. And sure enough, within a week, she resurfaced. Not with apologies, not with rage, but with something far more dangerous: a new narrative. Her Instagram, once filled with luxury tags and pouty selfies, had transformed. Now, it was a carefully curated gallery of soft-lit, healing content. A photo of a half-empty coffee cup with the caption, "Learning to Trust Again." A vague quote about toxic relationships, over sunset. And, most tellingly, a new circle of friends. Not the high-maintenance socialite she used to run with, but a group of soft-spoken, spiritual women who preach self-love between yoga sessions and juice cleanses. It was a masterclass in rebranding. And it worked. Comments flooded in. "You're so strong. Your vulnerability is inspiring. He doesn't deserve you." I watched, fascinated, as she spun herself from gold-digging villain to wounded survivor. But then came the real play. Sophia didn't just want sympathy. She wanted a platform. She appeared on a popular wellness podcast, tearfully recounting a story of financial abuse and psychological manipulation. None of it was outright lies, just twisted truths. She talked about how he controlled everything, conveniently leaving out that she quit her job voluntarily. How he cut me off overnight, omitting the recording of her calling me repulsive. How? I had nowhere to go, never mentioning the 3 other men she'd done this to. The host ate it up. The episode went viral. And suddenly, Sophia wasn't just a victim. She was a cause. I could have let it go. But then she crossed the line. She started monetizing it. A Patreon for healing workshops. A $50 ebook on reclaiming your power after trauma. A sponsored post for a luxury retreat. Because survivors deserve to treat themselves. She wasn't just lying anymore. She was profiting off it. And that's when I realized, this ends now. I didn't post receipts. I didn't argue online. I went straight to the source. The podcast host. The sponsors. The retreat center. And I gave him everything. The recording of Sophia admitting she was using me for money. The signed lease proving she was never entitled to the penthouse. The testimonies from David, Mark, and the others, all confirming the same pattern. But the final nail? The Patreon messages where she bragged to a friend about finessing the sob story for cash. It took less than 24 hours. The podcast episode was deleted. The retreat dropped her. Her spiritual friends distanced themselves with vague posts about discernment. But the real karma? Her Patreon subscribers demanded refunds. All $12,000 of them. Sophia showed up at my door one final time. No screaming. No tears. Just a hollowed-out version of the woman I'd once loved. "You win," she said, voice empty. "Are you happy now?" I looked at her. Really looked and felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just exhaustion. "I didn't do this to win," I said. "I did it so you'd finally stop." She left without another word. Last I heard, Sophia moved back in with a cousin in another state. No more luxury posts. No more podcasts. Just a quiet, ordinary life, the kind she'd spent years running from. As for me, I sold a penthouse, moved somewhere quieter, and for the first time in years, slept without checking my phone for a next move. Was it worth it? That's the thing about karma. It's not about revenge. It's about balance. Sophia didn't change. She didn't learn her lesson, but she did finally face the consequences of her own choices. And sometimes, that's enough. What do you think? Did Sophia get what she deserved? Would you have handled it differently? And most importantly, have you ever met someone like her? Let me know in the comments.